Episode 4 Refugees. Stuck on a boat adrift in the sea, with blinding sun and water all around. Your cool laid on the barge deck, trying to sleep. Not like there was much else to do. It had been 2 days since they left the Keystone Islands. Still no sign of land. Probably wouldn't see land for a few more days. Thankfully, the barges the islands had received from the Frost Kingdom came in handy. They were not warships. However, they did have a lot of room for people and supplies, so that was good. The 3 barges floated in a triangle pattern. They were powered by coal and could travel without someone rowing. It was boring still. Nothing to do. He knew almost all of the people on the barges. However, there were a few that he had not known well. Really, Kara was one he knew best. He was an outsider, except among his fellow soldiers. He never was much of a social guy. More of a fighter and a thinker than a charming person. So, I guess we'll have to rebuild after all this is over, Kara said cheerfully, although inside she was actually distraught. If we survive until it's over, and even then, if we win the war, Yakul said. Don't worry, we'll make it through this war. I believe it, she said. And who do you mean by we? The Frost Kingdom? Our people? The world? He said in a rising tone. I mean us. As humanity, we will survive and regrow. We're kind of like grass. We get stomped on, but that doesn't mean a new blade won't grow back, Kara said. That's an interesting way to put it, but I suppose it is true. Far away in the sea of tension, several ships were getting closer to each other. The Dark Empire had not officially declared war. They were leaning more towards a surprise attack. However, the Dragon Navy awaited in the misty sea of tension, which quite literally held lots of tension. The Cold War and now the soon-to-be all-out war. Several dragon ships patrolled the seas. The island in the middle would soon take the brunt of the attack. Dragon troops were currently deployed on, but unknown. To them, dark troops were landing on the shores. As soon as the dark troops were spotted, they started taking fire. They were being shelled from the high part of the island. Now it was war. The 2 fleets immediately started the explosions and started warring. The dark troops were slowly pushing up the hill, for now the dark troops were suffering heavy casualties, as they couldn't move up very far without having a cannon blast away or an explosion go off. The Dark Navy was winning the battle on the sea, as their ships were designed better. Supreme General Bao stood at the helm of the DSN Amagua. The title of Supreme was the highest one given in military, and it meant that officer could command both naval as well as ground forces. It had taken Bao 30 years to get that rank. He was in his 50s now. He had been a serviceman when he was a young man. Now he was one of the highest ranking people, below Emperor Shiva. Bao watched as his ground forces were being seemingly crushed. He grinned, however, at the fact that most of the dragon warships were sinking. However, their navy had also taken some hits. A cannonball flew towards the Imagua and bashed the side of the ship. The ship shuddered as more and more cannonballs focused on the Imagua, and many of them hit. Now the Imagua was going down. Get off the ship, Bao yelled. A few soldiers along with Bao got into a lifeboat and escaped. The rest were left to fend for themselves. On the west shores of the Tension Island, it was silent now. Bodies lay all over the hills, some dead, some unconscious, some wounded. The invasion of the Tension Island had been a disaster. However, the Dragon Navy was on the retreat. Every single ship with a dragon at the front of the mast was being hunted down. More and more dragon ships were being surrounded and brought down. Bell smiled as the last 5 ships in the Dragon Tension fleet were being brought down. They were ugly ships as well. Good to be rid of them. They had dragons carved into the front of the ships, with an ugly mix of red and green painted on them. They had multiple towers on each ship, making them easy targets. However, it allowed them more firepower capabilities, as the towers had cannons mounted into them, giving them great range from heights. On the east shores of the Tension Island, fighting was still going. Some soldiers had managed to fight their way up to the top, but were quickly in sword fights with the dragon soldiers. The dragon uniforms had the same red and green design. Their armor was made of some kind of chainmail and was worn underneath a leather uniform. The Hillside Regiment ended up winning the fight, but also suffered casualties. Now the battle was won. The majority of the dragon ships had been destroyed in less than an hour. Now the Tension Island was surrounded by enemy ships who were pouring dark soldiers onto the beaches. The Hilltop Regiment was getting bombarded. The Hillside Regiments were also being heavily bombarded. Soon most of the cannon fire was gone. The air was silent as no one fired any more shots. It was assumed that most of the dragon forces were dead. No more resistance. The surrender of the Hilltop Regiment and the Hillsides Regiment went down. In less than an hour, so many had lost their lives. It's estimated that of the troops stationed on the island, over 400 died, with perhaps 30 or less surviving the battle. But the Navy lost more than that. Now the troops surrendered and were brought onto the dark ships in chains. It was getting close. The barges started getting close to the mainland. It had now been 6 days since the battle in the Keast Islands, and 2 since the battle in the Sea of Tension. The refugees could see the beaches of the Frost Kingdom. 2 blue-colored warships patrolled the Sea of Division. The 2 warships gave an escort to the northern beaches of the Frost Kingdom. Yukul was astonished by the impressive Frost Kingdom fleet. It had at least had 4 medium to large warships, all of them tied to a blue color, bearing the snowflake flag. Now, since more and more warships appeared, they knew that they were getting close to the capital. "Who's in charge of your group?" a Frost soldier asked from the deck of his ship. Yukul was tempted to say that he was, but Kara was his commanding officer. "I am," Kara said. "Why do you come to the Frost Kingdom lands?" the man asked. "Well, we are here to seek refuge. The Dark Empire invaded our home, the Keast Islands, and we have a prisoner of war as well. And he has crucial information for the Frost Kingdom military," she said. "All right, here's the deal. We'll land on those beaches, or we'll escort you to the ice fortress." They beached the barges and were escorted a few miles to the great ice fortress. Yukul and his people were stunned at the wall. It was entirely made of ice. It expanded to the west miles and to the east miles. It was massive. You couldn't see the end of the wall. Many towers stood on the wall with cannons mounted. "I am Admiral Beyond. I welcome you as guests to Ra, capital of the Frost Kingdom. And with that, a gate opened in the ice wall, and they were led onto a thin strip of land, where they saw the city of Ra for the first time. Ra was surrounded by ice walls. The buildings were like nothing they had ever seen. So many ideas and architecture went into the buildings. Spiral buildings, towers going up, multiple flights. The city was massive. It was their new home. I would like to thank you guys for tuning in. I hope you guys have a great weekend, a great Valentine's Day, a great President's Day, and I thank you all for listening. And with that, I'm the narrator. Goodbye.